evening, everybody, and welcome back. This is the first of the year, the first 2024 episode of the Creative Cranium. We've got a great topic tonight. We're going to talk about dealing with imposter syndrome, a grievous condition that affects many creators. I can't wait to hear what the guests have to say. I got some great guests, so without further delay, let's launch right in. Please welcome to the show my pal, Corissa Grant. What's up, Corissa?
There. Hi. I'm good. Thanks for having me on again.
It is always a pleasure.
And show.
Yeah, super nice to see you. You've been real busy.
To be on this show.
Yeah, and by the way, Carissa's got a launch coming up. We're going to be talking about that in 2 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this topic tonight.
Yeah.
All right, but hey, it's not going to be just us, right? We got all the cool kids are here tonight. Please welcome Jon Westhoff.
Oh, there he is. Muted.
Turn on your mic.
You're muted.
Nobody wants to hear me anyway.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Welcome, Jon.
Well, I'm sending out the social medias. I'm not ignoring it.
Nice. I appreciate that. So let's dive right in. I got my other friend here. I'm a fan of his work. Please welcome Aaron Dowen. What's up, Aaron?
Well, bonjour. How are you?
I'm doing great. Did everybody have a great New Year's?
I did. Yeah, I'm glad we're out of the last one.
Yeah, 2023 was kind of bumpy for everybody, I sensed.
Yep.
Especially for creatives, and that's something we're going to talk about tonight, right? We've all been afflicted with imposter syndrome. I think I speak for most of us when I say that this is one of the most common elements that holds us back from achieving our goals. Corissa, I'm going to start with you. In your creative process, do you experience imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I don't even think I'm good enough for this show, let alone, making comics and writing. And I'm still shocked that so many people read it and spend their money on my stuff. So, yeah.
I knew you were going to say that. And that's one of the reasons I want to talk to you tonight. And I guess I would start by saying, the first thing is you're not really new anymore. Why do you still think that?
Old news.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's new, but it's been a year. It's been a year and 2 months. So as Jon says, I'm not a rookie anymore. So I'm not.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you were in the job market a year and 2 months, you might be the senior person.
Yeah.
Well, and also by productivity wise, she's like, surpassed all her peers. She's almost catching me, and I've been doing it for 15 years.
Right. I don't know. It feels like I haven't done anything, and I have, and my credit card proves that I have, but it just doesn't feel like I have, and it's I don't know. I still feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Well, and I appreciate your honesty. And, that's one of the things, too. I'm always very interested in the budgetary constraints of publishing. And that's something I definitely want to talk about. But for tonight, I kind of want to focus on the psychological elements and see if maybe we can come up with some things that potentially might help other people, right?
I don't think I'll ever change. I could make like 10 grand tomorrow and my Kickstarter be like, that's a fluke. It's like, yeah.
Well, and remember, I wouldn't always say money is necessarily the best indicator of success. That's something I say. I know people don't always agree with me, but there's lots of people that make tons of money, and I don't think that's an indicator that their product is any better than yours.
Yeah,
that's true. They're usually just more naked, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, and we'll touch on that too. So let's go around in a circle. Jon, how about you? Now, you got a little bit of experience, right? And first off, I want to say thanks for contributing Drumsticks of Doom to our Kickstarter campaign. It's a great book, and you see we got terrific feedback on it. What kind of things do you do to help you combat imposter syndrome?
Well, I mean, just like that, share it with your peers, get feedback from them, participate in other people's success. Those kind of things can kind of shake you out of your own head and thinking, because it is a very, you feel very isolated, especially in these last few years. So the more you participate in the community, get positive feedback, reach out on social media. I mean, even then, sometimes it can feel like, hey, I put this out there, I'm not hearing anything. But when you hear things like that from you and in your community saying, oh, retweeting and responding, all those things kind of get you pumped up and going, okay, maybe we've got something here.
Good answer. Aaron, how about you? You've been around a while too. First, when did you start? And the second question, how do you combat imposter syndrome?
I think the first year we actually put a book out was 2019. So I still have the same thing. And like Corissa said, it's just never going to change.
Yeah.
And I think it's just part of the nature of being a creative person is like, we're all weird. That's why we're creative. And so we never felt like we fit in the first place with any group of people. So that doesn't change once we get over into this stuff. So at this point, I've just been telling myself like, okay, well, what's next? Like, what's the next thing I want to do? What's the next thing that I want to make sure comes out? Where do I want to go creatively? And I've been trying to shut off the whole like, man, I'm just never going to fit in, because I have come to accept that even if I do fit in, I'm still going to feel like I don't fit in. So it just doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good point. And the thing about fitting in, the first thing is it's a human reaction. We all want to feel like we fit in, right? But you definitely have some truth in your statement that most creative people don't feel like they fit in. Not for nothing, I don't even feel like I fit in with the other comic creators. Corissa, when did you realize, or maybe you haven't realized it, when did you realize that you finally were fitting in with the other creators?
Well, fitting in with other creators and feeling like you belong are two different things to me, because I get along with everybody. Do I belong with people that are, so much more talented than me, or know so much more than me? No. But I get along with everybody. So I feel like I fit in. But like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that I belong there. So it's kind of like fake it till you make it. That's how I got through my own business before I started this. So I figure I'll fake my way through this too. So
do you mind if I ask, what was your other business? What's up, Joey?
I'm a mobile groomer, pet groomer. You have to say pet groomer now.
Well, no kidding. I got a friend that does that.
Yeah. So I faked my way through it for 2 years. And then when I was popular enough, I went straight to bathing so that I didn't have to worry about how crappy I did grooming. So no, I just bathed.
I assume you're talking about bathing the pets. I guess you probably bathed yourself before, though.
Yeah. I mean, twice. But yeah. But I was never good at grooming ever. I don't know how I got as far as I did, or why my clients keep stalking me when I stopped doing the grooms. But yeah, so I'm doing the same thing here. I don't fit in with the other creators. And that's how I was at grooming when I did actual the hair cutting. When I went to like expos and online, I didn't fit in with any of these groomers because they had this immense talent that I could never live up to. They scissored poodles and stuff, and I couldn't do any of that. So now I'm there with this, where I have a comic book, but I'm just surrounded by such amazing talent, So yeah, and they still put up with me mostly.
Yeah, you're pretty well liked in all the groups. We all, to be honest, you and I have been friends almost since the beginning, because you were the very first or second podcast, but one of the first or second was, I just started doing it, and you were kind enough to. And by the way, I still have no idea what I'm doing with podcasting, but here's the deal, right? Do it anyway.
Yeah. I grow on people, and then they can't tolerate me, but they come addicted to, like, if I'm gone, then it's too quiet for them and they don't know what to do. So
like a fungus, she grows
like
on people.
Yeah, like the group. I think that you guys would just completely stop talking if I disappeared. I don't know what you guys would do anymore.
Probably.
So yeah. That's yeah.
There's a good one from G Webb. Always your own worst critic, and I would definitely agree with that. I'm definitely my worst critic. Jon, how about you? Would you think that you were your own worst critic?
I mean, fortunately, I have some friends who criticize me much more, so they make me feel better about not criticizing myself, but for some reason. But they keep me humble. But no, I think you hit the nail on the head. Comics itself, we don't want to stereotype anybody, but we can look around at conventions. We know the type of people we're hanging out with, and I'm proud to hang out with those people. I'm proud to be part of that community. I've always been proud to call myself a nerd or whatever you want to say. But comics themselves, they do attract us for a certain reason, right? The fantasy, the escapism, whatever you want to say.
Right.
And then the creative part of it, for the most part, most of us come from that community as well, right? So I say this all the time when I have conversations with friends who are put off by people who approach their table, or I have tons of friends in the Magic the Gathering community. And again, I say, stop and reflect about why you play the game, what drew you to the game, and maybe have a little empathy towards that other person, because they're probably coming with some social skills issues or other things. Again, we don't want to stereotype, not everybody.
I think that's not necessarily an offensive stereotype. Most comic fans have a little bit of some underdeveloped social skills. I don't think that's too controversial to say.
Yeah, or again, there's something just about the medium that attracts, people.
Well,
and
what we would call nerds, right?
Right.
But what we found over time is the nerds are actually the more interesting people.
Of course. And that's just their preferred entertainment and what they engage in. That's why they like it. We, of course, know that the stories are very deep and rich and vivid, and that's part of it, too. So it's not just, hey, I'm awkward around people. No, of course, there's other things to it. But with all that comes some of the other social stuff that we talk about, including, maybe low self-esteem, or maybe lack of confidence, or maybe other things that they might project,
things like that.
Yeah, there can be a lot of reasons. So again, maybe it's my background in my professional life, but I'm guilty of it too. But I try not to participate in the jokes and things like that about the community and the guy coming up to your table and telling you his pitch for his story when you're trying to sell your books. Because I know,
actually, it happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
It does.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I thank them for their time and try to politely, ask them to step to the side of the table while we talk or something. That doesn't really get me charged up, because I can, pause and feel a little bit of what's going on with that person. So, and again, the creative thing is that too. And I think you got to work on yourself, like in anything, whatever job you're in, there's always going to be, even if you're, I don't know,
what's up, Greg?
CEO of Apple Computers, you're going to have, imposter syndrome. Almost everybody has it,
right?
Except for the most epic narcissists in the world. And of course, this community is going to be ripe with it. And part of it is that we don't address it like this, right? We joke about it. We talk about it. We constantly, needle each other and ourselves in groups. And some of that is trying to break that stigma too, and encouraging each other and sharing that feedback and taking that time and saying, well, I'd really like it if somebody gave me feedback on my book. So let me take the time to give it to theirs. And that might be, something we can help others improve on. But, a lot of it comes from myself. I struggled with depression growing up. It's part of what led me to want to be a social worker and a counselor. But it's not something that goes away just because I had success for one Kickstarter. That's for sure. It's something that takes a lot of work in yourself to really build that confidence.
Right. And can I tag the question on the end of your statement, Jon, which I agree with very much? Do you now feel like you fit in? Or if you did, when did you first feel like you now fit in with the creative crowd?
Well, honestly, I can think of a few moments. Approaching other creators who I looked up to, their tables, and them, treating me like a peer. I remember one creator, Mike Norton, the awesome creator of Battle Pug and Blue Beetle and things like that. I'd seen him around. We've been in social circles together, approached his table to buy a print. And he's like, oh, Jon, just take it. And I'm like, no, I have money for you. He's like, no, Jon, you're one of us. And that was just a nice moment just a nice moment from him to take a second to acknowledge that he had seen me around. And other moments like that, just building peers and communities like this, and people, saying they appreciate, hey, I appreciate, that you're around, or, hey, I read your book and it was great. It's been a slow process though. That's for sure. And again, it's still something that I struggle with every time I hit that launch button, every time I hit that page 1, panel 1, do I know what the hell I'm doing? So I know it'll never fully go away, but then you kind of shake it off or think about, some other positive things and maybe ground yourself and say, you know what, if this comic doesn't come out the best, there'll be other ones. I'll be all right. And my life is okay otherwise. Right.
And hold that thought, because we're going to talk about the financial implications of success around the next question. So Aaron, how about you? Man, I'm a fan of your work. I think you got some terrific stuff there, and a musician as well, just like Jon, and Corissa now too. She's making music. So do you feel like you fit in with the creative community? And if you do feel that way, what was your turning point? Like, okay, I now fit in.
I feel like I went through phases. I feel like at the beginning, definitely not. And I think it was mostly because just trying to establish ourselves and do what we thought we needed to do. And then realizing like, okay, we need to make more connections, and then making more connections. And then life stuff happens. And when life stuff happens, you have to make some decisions about where you're going to put that time and effort. And so I feel like when I started pulling back a bit, is when it shifted over into like all of a sudden, no, I didn't feel like I fit in at all. I felt like we were starting to fit in. We started getting good groups of people that were kind of talking to us and all that stuff. But when things happened in my life and the former co-owner of Catalyst's life, and we both kind of backed off of everything, everyone kind of treated it as if we were backing off of them, or like that it was somehow offensive. When the reality is we just had to take care of life stuff. And so then coming back into it, now I feel like I'm playing a bit of a catch-up game with people that I've known for too long to be playing a catch-up game with. And so I knew coming back into it this time, because that was really kind of the end of last year is when I started kind of coming back around. And, Jon is one of the first people I think that reached out to where, him and I had contact about like a book that we wanted to do together. And I've known Jon like through comic stuff for a long time now. And, when I actually think about the time I've been doing comics, and a lot of the other people that were around at the same time that I met Jon, they don't really chat or talk or anything anymore. And like I said, I think it's mostly because when we had to back off, people took that as if we were just completely neglecting the community or that we were somehow against them. And then we jumped ponds. That was the other big thing we used to talk about on the podcast a lot is it's like you're in this one pond of people and then you realize there's another pond of people. And then you're like, well, who's more like my personality type? And so you it's clicks. It's just kind of ebb and flow. And so it's one of the reasons I like the chat that everybody has. And I only interact on sporadic occasion because it's so hard to catch up with all the messages once they hit. Well, it's a lot at once. But I like it because it is a huge group of people that I have had encounters with throughout this process. So, as far as it is right now, I don't really feel like I fit in. And I'm okay with that. And I also realize there's other things I'm doing that people would kind of step back from. I've talked about the devotional I'm trying to put out. And so there's a whole swath of people that are like, well, I'm not going to like that post. I don't want anyone to associate me with liking the possibility that someone else is putting out a devotional. I get that. That's totally cool. Yeah. And then on the comic book front, like you post a comic book thing and it's like, oh, they're those people. They're still there. So yeah, I don't know. It's an ebb and flow thing. And I feel like I'm somewhere in between currently and we'll see where it goes.
Great example, G-Web, Subdivisions. I've been listening to that album this week, and he talks quite a bit about the struggles that we all go through trying to fit in with the crowd. And I think the questions and answers that you guys just went over give a great indication of that. And here's why. The truth is, imposter syndrome is very real. We all suffer from it, and there might not be a level where we ever fit like we fit in. And the truth is, maybe that's what drives us to do this in the first place. Or at least that might be one of the elements of it, right? So let's circle back around to the financial elements, and we'll just touch on this one briefly. And remember, guys, anything that you don't want to disclose on the show, you don't have to. I sometimes ask questions because it's how I learn, but it's not, if anything you don't want to disclose, you don't have to.
I'm an open comic book.
Yeah, I'm like that too. So Corissa, I'm going to start with you. I'm fond of saying that maybe financial success, let's be honest, it's something we all want, right? And it's one of the indicators that our work is good. But it's not the only indicator, right? And maybe not even the main one. Say, for example, you can compare a lot of books, and I'm going to throw music in there too. The one that sells the most is historically not always the best one. Mm-hmm. First of all, Corissa, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I always said that I would rather have more backers than more money. Of course, more money, nice, but I see people having like triple the amount of backers I have, but I make like 1,500 more. And I was like, I really want more backers.
Right. I'm right there with you on that one. And we'll get everybody's opinion, but I actually prefer more backers to more dollars because it's more of a sign of growth. Okay. Yeah. Now, arguably, if you are showing growth, that is what's showing that you're making it as a creator, right? Because a friendly reminder, I'm kind of new too, right? I started this rather late in my life, and it's really taken till just about now to take off. So let me ask you this, Corissa. What would your strategy be and I know you have some great products coming up too, so feel free to weave this into your answer. What would be your strategy to increase your backer count?
The only thing that really there's two things that work for me, besides John's going to say my plushies, but there's two things that work for me. One is I have increased my presence on social media. Like, I talk to everybody, and I try to interact with more people online. Now, I started doing it because I like talking to people. But I found that it helps because the more they interact with my normal posts, the more I show up in their feed.
Right.
So by me talking to other people, it's they show up more in mine, but I show up more in theirs.
Right.
So that helps. And of course, my go-to is podcasts.
Right.
So, I was talking about this with my husband. They're trying to get their music career going. I was like, you have to be social, which he's not. You have to be social online, and you have to be on shows. You have to get out there, and you have to, and my co-writer gets mad all the time because she's not social. And she's like, everyone talks to you. And I was like, because I talk to everyone. Like, you have to get on there and you have to talk to people. And I think the fact that I try to support other indie creators, and I try to talk to them. I help all the new creators come to me asking for advice, and I let them know I'm new and still don't know what I'm doing, but I help them as best I can. So I think that helped a lot. I think sharing the new products I have with people just because I get excited about them. And I mean, I was showing plushies that are 2 issues away, so it's like, look at all the plushie I got. So I get just as excited as, and I want to show people and share people. And I'm awful. I want to share every page I get, but I obviously have been told I can't. But I would. And if I was rich, I would just give these comics away. So it's tough to not share. Every time I get a new page, I'm like, look at this page. But, we're starting issue 12 on Monday, and I can't share anything because we're releasing 8 on Monday. So I have to keep the fun stuff to myself, and it's sad.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Okay, so let's move over to Jon, and I'm going to break the question in 2 parts. The first thing is, to you, is financial success the indicator of making it? And number 2, what would you do? Because I know you have a campaign coming up. What would you plan to do to increase your backer count?
Well, I think financial success, like you said, it is part of it all, right? But I've definitely learned over the year not to lean so heavily on that. I've had some stumbles along the way, and that's helped humble me a little bit. And
can you expand on that, Jon, for the viewers? When you say stumbles, what do you mean by that?
Well, I've had some campaigns fail.
How many?
I've had probably 3 out of 18 or 19 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, thanks. And that's something I had to remember too, just because one had failed, got to remember the other ones that had went through. Some other different ways of launching books has really left me licking my wounds, like trying to do a straight pre-order thinking, oh, I've got enough, backers for issue 1. Why do I need to go to Kickstarter? And then it horribly flops. So I've had some other financial failures in that way. But just kind of remembering that, again, that's a huge part of it, right? That's the whole snowball that keeps this whole train going. I get that, especially now that I almost exclusively worked with, full-time artists that need their page rate to keep going.
Right.
So I don't want to downplay that for anybody. I do understand that, but understanding that, just like if I'm working with a client, and I would never tell them, don't shoot for the moon. If your goal is to be an astronaut and literally go to the moon, of course you should do that. But if you're also end up working at NASA and, developing that technology, that's something. Just like if my only goal is to work on Spider-Man and that's all I focus on, and I never get to that goal, I'm going to miss all the steps that I took along the way and not appreciate it. I want to make comics. If I tack on that I want to be a rich comic creator or be a billionaire and all that, I might be setting myself up for failure. So maybe setting realistic goals will help ground people in, what? I don't have to do a $10,000 campaign. I've done several $4,000 and $5,000 campaigns.
Right. You could do $3,000 campaigns.
Yeah. Obviously don't, financially ruin you and your family along the way while you're reaching your goals. But again, it's just like music, Tim. If my goal is only to play Madison Square Garden, I'm probably not going to get there, especially at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But if my goal is to make music, I can do that. I can sit down right now on my drum set. I can record something. It may not be top of the line stuff, but I'm doing it. I'm doing what I want to do. So I think it's sometimes about focusing on that simpler goal. And you know, again, that kind of keeps me going, because I do get to look at my library of books and say, you know what, this one stumbled, but I've still got 12 other ones, and we'll find a way to make it work. And I forgot the second half of the comment.
And
what would you do to the second half is what would you do to increase your backer count?
I would definitely, I'm going to, a huge array of stuffies. Every stuffy I can think of, everything. No, that's part of it though. Getting more comfortable with the merch side has been important for me. The variant side has been a new thing for me in the last few years. Embracing that part of the community and the culture, and giving the backers the choice if that's what they want. It all helps the bigger product, so I don't have to feel like, I don't know, this sense that I got that like, oh, that's not what I want to do. I just want to put out the comic. Well, you know, there's other things to it, and those things can be fun too. So find the ones that you like. You don't have to do this, you know, type of merch or 10 variant covers, but if you find one really cool one, and I've loved every artist I've worked with so far, so find what works for you. And so that's a big part of it for me. And I've really been trying to advertise outside and get more comfortable with. I sometimes, even after all these years, I'm uncomfortable talking to people outside of the comics community that I make comics. I just don't bring it up. And I realize I'm in all these heavy metal groups, and I make a heavy metal comic, and I'm like, hey, even if 5 out of the 5,000 people in here check it out, that's something I need to just, you know, politely ask the admins or whatever. Hey, I have a book, you know, that's around the theme of your group. Can I post it? Or, hey, you know, even my friends of 25 years, I sometimes don't even let them know what's going on with me. And that's something I've had to be more comfortable with, you know, kind of talking outside the comics circle and seeing, you know, finding out that there's lots of people that would be interested who maybe don't even read comics.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. And just to kind of encapsulate it, try other groups, folks. That's definitely one of mine. I'll save it for after we talk to Aaron. Aaron, same thing for you, right? Would you say that financial success is one of your indicators to defeat imposter syndrome? And second, what would you do to increase your backer count? Lay it on us, Aaron.
No, and the biggest reason is because I started with superhero stuff, and I've done 4 or 5 superhero, you know, Kickstarter campaigns so far, and they've all been pretty well trash. I mean, because superheroes just don't sell right now, which is cool. But you know, my biggest financial blunder is also one of the coolest and I guess biggest blessings that I've had, and it actually opened them today. But like my first trade, I mean, my first trade's done. So like, regardless of all the crap that's gone on before now, regardless of the crap that happened with this campaign, where I feel like, you know, I probably should have done better, but it's also a campaign. So the people that already had issues 1, 2, 3, and 4, they don't care much about a trade because they already have the issues. Like, I understand that, but I also have this for the rest of my life. And it's nice to put something on the shelf that has, you know, my name on a spine. So that's just cool for me. Yeah. And it's also, you know, they do, you know, trades do much better at shows and stuff. And, you know, that's another thing I've been looking forward to getting back to. So when it comes to financial success in campaigns, I told myself very early on that I needed to stop looking at that. And the reason why is because my biggest campaign financially was my least amount of backers.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, our very first campaign, it was for Paradigm Issue 1, and we had 34 backers and we made $4,500. Well, ever since then, we've never made that amount again. But we've had like One Last Job number 1, I think it was 170 or something backers. So like we've had way more backers in other campaigns, but it made 3,000, like 3,500 or something like that. So I'm trying to keep up. First off, I'm trying to keep up with the times. Second of all, I do other stuff. You know, I don't just focus so much on just comics because there's other stuff I care about. There's other facets of storytelling that I care about. Music, of course, being one of them. I do stuff like the novelettes, which is like what's going on. I'm making a little package for the digital stuff, but this is a novelette that I wrote that's set in the superhero universe. But if you read it, you wouldn't realize it was because it's about a knight. So, you know, with this next camp together a little digipack of kind of like-minded stories that are kind of sword and shield based, and then put that novelette in there as well. And you never know if somebody will read that and then be like, well, screw it, I'll try the superhero stuff. because we did learn from experience. We had people that were like, I don't read superhero stuff, but I read Tilt and I loved it. And so then they bought the rest of the Tilt story, which is cool for us because that's like, not only did we just get our own fan and customer, but we also brought them into a medium that they thought they hated. So for me, financially, I don't look at it that way anymore. And I think my mental health's better off for that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, because it is such a part of our community, especially now that event of the Kickstarter, we put so much weight on it.
Yep.
But remind yourself that this is a long-term goal, and you clearly have long-term goals in mind. And again, it is important, right? If you need $4,000 to keep your book going, and you only get 1,000, that's frustrating. But there's a lot of moments like that for me too. Like I only go to a few conventions, but when you go to one and you sell, a dozen or so books or whatever, that reminds you that there's other things, like you said, selling online and trade down the road. There's bigger pictures that we sometimes lose sight of because we get so involved in the events that these crowdfunders are.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great answer. And Aaron touched on mental health. And guys, I love to talk about mental health. But it is such a strong component of what we do. And, the first thing I'd like to point out to the viewers, all of us in this room are comic book writers. So the first thing, we're all incredibly wealthy. You've probably heard most comic book writers are millionaires. So the main thing I'd like to talk about is mental health, because I think John said it earlier, it can be a little lonely, right? You're kind of out on an island and you're trying to make something, and there's lots of doubts and anxieties and these different things which can kind of stop you from moving forward. It can be paralyzing, right? So I'm going to jump over to Corissa here. Corissa, if you have anxieties or any type of concerns at all about releasing your work, how do you overcome them? And what advice would you give to somebody to help them do that?
I have anxiety every minute of every Kickstarter. I just keep releasing them because I want to see them. I figure that whatever I get will help me pay for the next one, or pay off some of the debt from the errors of the beginning career of comic books. But that's really my only anxiety. It's either gonna I'm going to release it anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, you've obviously overcome yours, though. They come out pretty regular.
Yeah, well, like I said, but everyone says says that I'm, that it's impressive that I do that, but it's my artist. He's so fast, and we're so far ahead. Like I said, he's on the last issue of book 2, so he's on issue 12. Issue 11's getting lettered and all that. So I guess I just don't care. I make the comic books for me, and I'm very appreciative of people that read it. I got 2 compliments 2 days ago. So people I don't normally talk to on Twitter said that they liked my work. So I thought that was cool. Yeah. That was nice. I saved those. I screenshot them and saved them. And
there's a lot to be said for that. I guess I'd want to do a quick shout out here, which if you are the type of person that follows a creator, please keep in mind how rewarding it is for us to hear words about things that you liked, or maybe even constructive criticism if it's done in a way that's positive. And by the way, one of my first words of encouragement was from John, by the way. It was regarding some of the songwriting stuff. And you remember that? It was for the Robot City Blues song. You had a positive comment about that. But John, let me jump over to you. So the first thing is, if you want to disclose it, do you have any type of anxieties about releasing products? And if you do, how do you overcome it? What advice would you give?
Oh, I definitely, every second of every day is filled with anxiety for many reasons. But creative wise, but the 2 keys are be incredibly narcissistic or be incredibly stubborn, or a combination of those. So if you're feed your narcissism a little bit, be like, hey, this is good, I think this this fits in the community, this is a book that people want to read. Or be like Corissa and just say, you know what, I'm going to fucking do it anyway. I'm put it out. But no, I think a big key is what Corissa said. I joke, but if you're making the books that you want to see, then, you know, obviously I can look at my books and I can see, oops, I lettered this wrong, or I misspelled something there. This character should have said this. You know, it's not to say you can't be critical of yourself or try to grow as a creator, but if you really are trying to create what you want to create, then it doesn't feel like that struggle. The only anxiety you have is, you know, will other people support it? But in the end, you'll still have that product that you wanted to see, and you're excited. Especially for me, I work with a lot of, you know, close friends and collaborators, so it's fun to me to have this object that we made together. You know, again, I do this every time I talk to you, but just like music, you know, we created this thing together. It's really cool.
Right.
And that is enough to kind of push through that anxiety and say, well, you know what, let's do it anyway. Let's find a way to make it work. And that's kind of what keeps me motivated in general behind the scenes when you're doing all the 500 other things you don't want to do to get the book out. You know, that's part of what pushes me through too. Yeah,
I buy that one. And I think that, well, I guess there is a little bit of a division there, because of course we want the support of our fellow creators, but at the end of the day, what we really want are readers and customers.
Right.
But it does mean a lot. And thanks so much to the fellow creators that have supported us over these varied projects. Aaron, how about you? Any thoughts on anxieties and how to confront them when releasing your product?
My biggest anxiety, I think, is mostly on launch day. Like, other than that, I don't really have too much, because these are stories that I want to tell anyway. And they were going to come out in one form or fashion or the other. And I'm starting to learn to live in the gray. And
the gray of your beard, or?
Yep. No, I'm living with that gray. No, but when it comes to the storytelling side, like, we had announced a book a long time ago called A Bard's Tale, and it was going to be a comic book series that we thought would be really fun. And then, you know, a bunch of stuff happened with the artists just kind of not doing the work. And then another artist we were going to hire, but the person that hired it isn't even, you know, with Catalyst anymore. So for my anxiety, it was more so what to do with these stories. And so I realized I could just take that exact same story and turn it into a young adult novel series. And so that's where the focus went on that particular book. So I guess for me, the anxiety is not there as far as anything other than launching the freaking book. And then I also come to expect immediately when I hit launch that it's just not going to fund and everything is going to be awful. So I don't think I get much anxiety over that, because I'd like to say that I'm optimistic about stuff, but when you launch a campaign, you just freaking don't know. So I just already assume that it's going to go trashy, especially when you do superhero stuff first. At that point, there's no more hurting.
Well, and by the way, I think that it's fair to say in this group, there's none of us in here that do anything that people would consider mainstream. I mean, you got Corissa, who's kind of hardcore horror. You got Jon, who's kind of obscure. All his titles are a little bit obscure, and I love them. That's not a rip. And Aaron, you've got a little bit of everything, right? And of course, I'm sci-fi, which there's none of us that are. And again, I'm not disparaging anybody else, but none of us are taking the easy road where you got the sexy books and this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh,
yeah. I'll probably get some hate for that comment. Well, again, that's not disparaging it. You know, but I think it's pretty much an accepted truth at this point that you can drum up additional sales by having a little bit of a risque cover, right? I don't think I'm shocking anybody with that statement.
What?
So my next statement would be, if financial success is one of the goals of a Kickstarter campaign, why aren't we doing that? So I'll start with you, Chris. So why wouldn't you do that?
What will I do?
Like a nudie cover.
When are we getting sexy Anubis, or is he sexy enough already?
Well, you could tell he always has leg day and abs, but
Anubis with his Johnson out.
Whoa.
I just don't. I don't feel well. Okay, so I have, for anyone that knows me, even the tiniest bit, knows my complete and utter obsession with my characters. So my character will never be nude or topless. I just feel like it's just so invading to her. As far as a normal topless cover, I had one, and I could not even put it. And I love topless. Obviously, I love breasts. I got them. But for some reason, I could not have it on my Kickstarter because it was a free cover, and I was grateful for it. It was a topless vampire. But for whatever reason, I couldn't put it on there. So I actually had it as a secret in the add-ons, and my brother found it, and then a couple other people found it. So I sold like 7 of them or whatever for 10 or something. But for some reason, I feel like my story can carry it. I don't want to rely on something like toplessness. 2, there's no nudity in the book. And I don't want someone to think that there is by seeing, a topless cover. And 3, weirdly, when I'm at cons, I have tons of parents asking me the age of the comics. And I said, my answer is always, there's tons of swearing and there's gore. And they go, yeah, but is there any nudity? And I go, no. They go, okay. And they'll buy it. So I don't think I can ever do that. And to be totally honest, there's a creator who flat out said to me once that my story doesn't need it, which is one of the best compliments he could have given me. And he says my story is good enough and that it'll eventually just, carry itself and I won't have to worry about it. So he said, if I was to do topless covers, then I would degrade my story. And I don't want those kind of readers that would want it only for the nude cover. It is tempting when you see how much they bring in. Man, I've seen, when I first started this, I saw one. Now I've seen way more. It was just pretty much lesbian porn. And the guy had like $3,000. It was like issue 11. And I was like, damn. But yeah, my story will never lean that way. So
sure. John, how about you? What's your 2 cents on sexual content in general?
Well, I think sometimes, we know the ones that are just, the cheesecake or whatever. That's always been part of comics. And, all of my stories are written by an adult. I mean, I hope. At least my driver's license says I am. And they're about adults. I haven't written, many child characters. So I definitely have, risque subjects, but it's just not an avenue I want to go down unless it's part of the story. Like I will, there can be sexy scenes if it services the story. But it's just not who I am as a person. I don't write in that way. I don't, put myself out there like that. So it's just not something that's been part of my story. And especially the covers, like if it serviced something, and I do, spoilers, I do have one slightly in the work that's a little tongue in cheek, kind of not safe for work. Just kind of as a larf about the community, but in general, I wouldn't do a topless cover because it
doesn't fit the brand.
Right. If it was a woman who got her clothes ripped off in a zombie attack or something, to fit the style, maybe. But if it's just somebody sitting there nude, again, it's not really in the picture for part-time comics.
Right. Aaron, how about you? You want to add your thoughts on the topic of, is there room for nudity and risque content at Catalyst Comics?
No. No. I have said before, though, because I do script for other people, if I'm not scripting for my own company, I will go as far as you want me to go with the story. Because at the end of the day, the cover's up to them and for whatever they want for their campaigns. But as long as there are certain things that I would never write or never want to have my name attached to, but I think I push a little bit. I try to push myself as far as I'm willing to go. But when it comes to
same thing.
Catalyst,
can you expand on that? When you say, it's kind of a little vague, right? When you say push yourself as far as you can go, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So things that I'm not willing to do at Catalyst, I'm not willing to do nude scenes. I'm not willing to do sex scenes or in fact, in any of the Catalyst books, there's not even crazy bad profanity, except for I think Fall of Night's probably going to start having, it does have a little bit in there. But that was never intended to be a Catalyst book. So it just is what it is. But for other people, when I develop a story with them, I with John, even with the book that him and I are working on together, I'm willing to push that envelope that I wouldn't do with my own stuff. I'm willing to push that a little bit more because I just feel like it's not. Catalyst is a representative of me and like me as a person and like all the things that I think about and all that. But when I'm outside of the realm of Catalyst itself, like I don't feel like those same restraints are on there. But like I said, there's still things that I'm not willing to do, which would be like the intense nudity and eroticism and all that.
And I kind of feel like that too. I feel like, Part-Time Comics is me. It's me putting myself out there. Almost all the stories are written by me. So I do feel like that's some of it. But it is an interesting subject the more I think about it, because we all do pretty graphic violence, and we can have our feelings about that. I have, as a social worker, I have scenes where children are being harmed in my book, and I'm not to say I don't struggle with that, but I did say, hey, this is part of the story. So it is interesting to think that it's just always been a line I've had and just haven't crossed yet.
Well, and John and I actually had with an artist, John and I had to have a separate conversation because there was something in one of the books that the artist had an issue with, and so John and I had to have that conversation of like, well, like first off, I'm coming at it like I'm in ministry and stuff, and I didn't have a problem with it. So like we were just discussing that some people just have certain lines on certain things, and some people don't have those same lines. Like it can be any given thing. Like some people just aren't willing to go ultra profane. Some people are willing.
I'm one of those, Aaron. I don't do profanity at all.
Yeah. So
ever since I was a kid, they always said and by the way, I get it that one character always has a bad mouth. It makes for a decent character. But if all the characters doing it, it can be an indicator of sloppy writing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or at least an indicator of you need more vocabulary. Like you want to have each character different somehow, right? Like maybe one guy's a real brain, one guy's got a real bad mouth, one guy's like in the animation world, they say, if you turn the lights off and they keep talking, you should still be able to tell who's talking. If there's 4 characters in that room, you should be able to tell by their vocal tells.
Yep.
I'd want to add, I had submitted that story last year for Russell Nolte's book. And some of you guys know this story, which was, it's a Lovecraftian horror story, right? And it's kind of graphic and this kind of thing, but it was kicked back by the editor the first time. They didn't have a problem with the end of all human life, but they didn't like that the female goddess, her boobs were showing.
Timothy.
I know. So again, we edited it with some colors and we put the word balloons in front. Like there was a way to adapt it so it's not dirty. You don't want to show boobs. But for the record, if you are a backer of the last Water Wars trade paperback, you will get the banned version.
The banned version?
Yeah, I made 2 versions because I was like, eventually this is coming out. And that's a good example of where it fits in with the story, right? Because she actually like comes through from the other dimension, like coming out of these flames, and she doesn't have any clothes on.
Well, and you talk about the subject that we're on, it, imposter syndrome. Some part of me, I do think now that I'm thinking about it, does want people to like the story as much as they can for the story.
Yes.
And I do feel like that's the one subject that I feel like would plant the seed in me that people are only getting it for this, and I'd rather not have any other seed planted there.
Yep, that's a good, very, very good point.
Yeah. Let's see. Seems like a picture on its fit that fits with more. Well, I'll let Corissa jump on this. Corissa, your stories have some violence for sure. Do you think there's room for sexiness in it? And is there a blend? What is the correct blend for you, do you think?
Not really. I mean,
because you have some romance for sure.
And she has some sexy outfits, so she's,
that was my artist. For whatever reason, he put the female vampire in lingerie. I don't know why. But I was like, all right,
it's a female vampire.
It's kind of
like in a Walmart type store, so I was like, well, that's fitting.
Well, that seems like a mistake on the artist's part.
Yeah,
no, I think it fits.
It fit. I've watched the people of Walmart videos. They fits perfectly. But overall, I mean, it's got such a love story to it. But like they kiss like twice, and I think they say "I love you" like twice, and like later on. So it's there'll never be anything sexual between them. I guess it's implied at one point. I guess I don't remember what we wrote, but he distracts with fangs. Yeah. He cracks me up, by the way. If I'm ever laughing, it's because I read something by G-Web. Because
we're getting some great comments tonight.
Yeah.
And I want to say a quick thanks to the viewers. We're actually hitting some record numbers. Welcome aboard. You're watching the Creative Cranium. Let's change the direction of the questions. Corissa, if you had, let me think how I want to ask this. Because we talked about how financial indicators are not always the top level of success. It is the one that we all want. But what would be some examples other than financial where you would say, okay, great, I'm getting recognition. This is helping my imposter syndrome. What would do it for you other than money now?
I want to pass 200 backers.
Okay.
That's, I mean, like I said, the ones that said something, like I just had somebody write to me and say, of course, there could be one of 140 podcasts, but he says, a good buddy of mine just had you on a podcast and recommended following you and said you're doing some great work. Can't wait to check it out. So I don't know who it is because I've been on 140 of them, but the fact that some people talk about me when I'm not around, there's been 2 times in my life that I felt somewhat of an ego boost. One when I was in high school and I was walking through the halls and they didn't know I was around, and the entire classroom was talking about an art project I did. If anyone doesn't know, I actually do draw. I know that sounds weird because I don't draw my own stuff, but I paint and I draw and I do clay. And they were talking about how amazing it was. And that shocked the hell out of me. And then the other thing was, Lori had told me she was on several podcasts and they all talked about me. I make an impression, I suppose, whether it's good or bad. But she had said every time I'm on a show, they talk about you or something you did or something you said or your story or something. And I felt guilty and then I felt joy from it. So I had mixed emotions at the time. But that makes me feel good when people are recommending me to somebody else. You know, I've had a couple of people and anyone that follows me on Facebook, like I have like 30 new followers in the last, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I'm like, who's following me? Where'd you find me? Like, what are you doing? But I love seeing that people are following me when they don't need to. They're probably not spammers because they're following. They're not adding me as friends. So things like that, the fact that people recommend my story to other people, that's a great ego boost. Thanks.
Those are nice words, Crimson Owl. Let's appreciate that.
Gonna make me blush.
So, John, how about you? Right, like obviously, money's right at the top of our list, but I love to say money is not the driving force for most comic creators. Right? If it was, we would all be selling cars. So, what are your things that, other than money, that would make you say, hey, I'm not an imposter?
Well, I hadn't even really thought about it when I restarted with this company after publishing with another company for about 10 years. And I sat down to do a Kickstarter and I realized we had never made 200 backers before. So we did that with Drumsticks of Doom, the first issue. And now we've done it a couple times since then. So, 200 backers is an amazing goal. Now, of course, my goal would be 300. We got to 267 once. And that 300 mark is just huge in our community. I think it opens up so much. I mean, if you can get 100 people to chip in $20, you're good. 200, you're golden. And then 300 or more, it's like, wow, now you're doing things. You can, get books out more regularly. And it's just amazing to have that many readers. But I will say, outside of that, Drumsticks of Doom, we've already went back to reprint a couple times too. So that's a big indicator for me. When I've got to go back and reprint a book that I did a pretty healthy run on, that really makes me feel great. Now,
good answer.
Books are moving, they're out there. But yeah, those numbers, we do love our numbers still.
We do love our numbers. As I'm fond of saying, I said this in the group chat this morning, a number is only meaningful though when it's compared to another number. Like it'd be one thing to say, hey, that's great, I did 200, but that means that maybe 300 was on the table. Why didn't you hit 300? That's the way exactly. I think. So yeah, like what did I miss, right? So let's jump over to Aaron. Aaron, how about you? Again, money's at probably the top of most people's list. We are capitalists after all as Americans, but obviously money's not the main goal in creating these projects. In your mind, what would help you defeat your imposter syndrome other than money?
Let me chime in first.
Go ahead, bro.
Aaron makes comics and he's in ministry. Obviously, you're wrong, Tim. He is all about that money.
That's right.
The 2 richest careers.
That's right.
Anyway,
And
sorry.
I'm a musician.
And he's a musician.
Yeah, just a quick aside on the musician. I think, particularly in the case of the three of us, one of the things that makes you a little bit thicker skinned, if you're a musician, you've had at least one time where somebody stood in front of you and screamed, "You suck."
Yeah, or you
Yeah.
played a show and the only people who were there were the other bands. Yeah,
Right.
been
So
through it.
I never had anybody throw anything at me, but I have had people tell me I suck. I mean, fairly often.
Just today.
Yeah. Today. Well, I do have one, but I'll save that for my turn. Aaron, so what do you think? What would help you defeat imposter syndrome? But it has to be something other than money.
I don't know that I would ever want it defeated, because I do feel like it's something that spurs me on to kind of keep pushing.
Okay.
Because again, like we talked about it earlier, like all of us, if we feel like we don't fit in, that's part of like what made our character of who we are. So it also bled into the stories that we're creating. I don't know that I'm ever going to find that. I mean, I've had moments where I was like, crap, like I guess I'm a little bit further than I thought I was. And some of them were like, there were a couple of different bigger creators that complimented my work and had really nice things to say. And like, that's huge, of course, for anybody, like just, especially when it's people you look up to. Like, so that was huge. But like, yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to get out of it. And I don't really think that I want to, because I really do want people to either just not like my stuff at all or love it.
I think that's a really good answer, Aaron. In other words, it's one of your driving forces.
Exactly.
One of your motivators.
Yeah. I mean, I got into this, part of it was because I wanted to tell stories. And then another one was like, basically someone said that, that you couldn't do it. Like, they told me I couldn't do it. So spite was
sucked.
a very,
that was it.
Yeah, exactly. So spite's a very strong motivating factor. And that's why Matt and I teamed up and did Paradigm in the first place, is both of us went through that same thing where somebody was like, we don't think you can do it. So then we were just like, okay, we'll watch. And we did.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting in the sense that, how do I want to say this? Sometimes our driving forces, I think what we just learned from the four of us, don't have much to do with money. It's some innate psychological need, right? Like, and I've told people on other podcasts, my reasons for becoming a writer, in my case, it's very psychological. I got some hangups myself. I had been through this bumpy divorce, right? And I was a comic book store owner, and it was my lifelong dream to have one. And it was taken from me in the divorce settlement. So that was a tough pill to swallow. But I can remember sitting down and going, okay, I need to make something that can't be taken from me. And that was my first book.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty interesting, right? Yeah. So I want to go off topic for just a second, because Corissa made a great point. And this is something Lori asked me about the other day. It was, you might even remember this conversation, Corissa. She was saying about, hold on, let me think of the right way to ask this. Putting some kind of warning on the cover, in the sense that, would warn you about the content within. I guess the first thing I would say is, who cares what I think? I want to hear what Corissa thinks. So do you think it's effective or appropriate to have a content warning on the cover of your book?
I've had it since day one.
You kind of need it, right?
Well, I was covering my ass. And I added one thing to it when issue 7 came out. So I originally had strong language, strong violence, gore, horror, whatever the hell I put in there. And then when issue 7 came out, I also added self-harm because of something that had to occur in the issue. And now I've just left it in there. I do it because I grew up in the era of the CD saying, this is this is mature content. I don't put an age limit. I don't say rated R. But
to your mind, what would be roughly the age limit? 17?
See, I would have thought so until all these people with 10-year-old kids bought them. So what do I know?
I know. A parent told me at an Indiana convention, I said, it's pretty adult. There's a lot of swearing. And she's like, they've heard worse at home.
Yeah.
Like you said, they just care if there's nudity.
They only care if there's nudity.
John, do you have a content warning on your cover?
I did start putting the age rating, but I never did. And again, in my professional life, you'd think I'd be more considerate, like Corissa said about, self-harm and other things. I haven't had any, aggressive, sexual assault scenes or anything like that. But, it is something I should consider. I do put the age rating on the back. But I do sometimes take for granted that I feel like because of Kickstarter and conventions, I'm hand selling the book, so I have an opportunity, but I may not always have that opportunity to kind of give people the pitch. So I probably should.
You put the age in the back, so by the time they read it, they're like, "Oh, I wasn't old enough."
I usually put it on the barcode on the back, or like where the price tag is. Right, exactly. Because I don't know. I just
but legally you're covered, so
right.
Yeah, that's not John's fault.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of it as a legal thing. I was just trying to be, considerate that. But I would hope people would kind of, I don't know, give it a glance before they dive into it, like any content. But
I think having a content warning potentially increases sales. Aaron, what's your 2 cents on this?
Yeah, I've never put it on there.
But you don't have any kind of.
I mean, well, welcome to Everville. The monster like eats kids in school, so that one has been brought up before. It was a parent asking, and my quick question back was like, "Do you let them watch The Walking Dead?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Well, you're fine." I mean, for me, it's just like, all right, well, like John said, flip through it. Like if there's anything you're not comfortable with, then all right, it's not the book for you. But hey, there's also Tilt, and that's a superhero story.
You let them watch The Walking Dead. Oh, you got bad taste. You can't buy my book. No, just
Yeah,
kidding. Just kidding. Walking Dead fans, I did watch it.
I watched Nightmare on Elm Street 3 when I was 6, and Cujo when I was 6. So
right,
I can't go by age.
Right. Usually the people who say that also
are
like us, Corissa.
Yeah,
out there.
I mean, how many of us were playing Grand Theft Auto when we were like way too young to be playing Grand Theft Auto? So.
Right. Evil Dead 2 was mine when I was like, 8 or something, crazy.
Well, and I'm not sure that I'll just add my 2 cents on this. I'm not sure that like I said, I don't think it hurts sales to have a content warning. And in some cases, I think people want edgy material, and that might help them say, "Oh, it is great. I want it then." You know what I mean?
But that's like the only 2 I feel like are helpful are to have an E for everyone and an M for mature. Like anything that's in between those 2, I don't think it helps or hurts sales. But
tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, so if you have like an E for everyone and it's a kid's book or whatever, then you're going to get the parents that just see that and they're like, all right, well, this would be great for or a grandparent that's like, oh, this would be great for my kid. And then the flip side of that is if there's an M on it, then it's like, oh, I'm edgy and dark. And then they go for that. But anything in between those 2, I just don't think it's relevant at all.
When I had an all ages appropriate book, I would separate the table into, if they walk up, this is what's for kids, especially if they were with kids, this is what's not. But I put like 13 plus on my book. Like I kind of give it my own rating, or 17 and up, or
John, I'm a 13 plus. I'm a 13 plus.
And
my thing is
why? Like you don't say why. Like if you watch TV, it'll say 10 and up, and it says strong language or nudity or violence or whatever. Your 13 doesn't technically mean anything.
Right.
You don't
I'll put violence or adult situations, stuff like that. You know.
In my case, I'm 13, or I think is mine 15 or 13. But anyway, it's only mine. I'm not even particularly violent, but all the characters are carrying guns, and some people are touchy about guns. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
One of the characteristics of Americans, they seem to be. Let's be honest, guns are a hot button issue. Like sometimes some people at the conventions, they might even ask you, "Is there a lot of guns in this book?" I've had people ask me that twice.
No one has to ask me; they just have to look at the covers.
Right. Guns.
There's never been a cover without some kind of weapon.
Yeah, my one last job cover is literally just the edge of a silhouette of a guy holding a gun. So, yeah.
Well, it's always kind of funny what things are controversial and what aren't. I'm continuously surprised by that. But yet, G. Webb, our boy Zorb, he mentioned that sometimes statistics are showing that warnings increase sales. And I can definitely think of some cases, like if you remember back with the album controversies, and they were going to make albums with offensive lyrics have the warning on them. And they're like, oh, it's censorship, right? But what happened was, the sales went through the roof on these albums because kids went, hey, well, that's the one I want, right?
Yep.
I'd be so mad when I accidentally bought the censored one. I'd be pissed.
Oh, Jessica's got a point here too. It's the way it's drawn, right? If it's cartoony, you can probably get away with more. That's one of the things they talked about The Walking Dead, right? It was in black and white. If it would have been in color, it would have probably been restricted a little bit more because some of those scenes are really gory.
Yeah, they do.
And the black and
comics
white
are that phase is kind of different, right? Too now because we know people don't really look at that with comics.
Yeah.
But
So let's
unless,
see.
or like Aaron said, unless it's clearly labeled, for kids or.
Right. Well, and there is one thing that I guess I should point out, that it's okay to have all different kind of comics. It's what I call the big tent. Like, there's room for kids books, there's room for violent horror, there's room for sexual content. It's a medium that sort of embraces all the different genres, right? I don't think there's any right answer, particularly as far as that goes. All right, let's get into a little bit more existential questions. I hope you like these. Corissa, I'm going to ask you this one. If you could go back in time and talk to your 14-year-old self. Okay, ready? You're getting in the time machine.
I'm trying to figure out where I was when I was 14.
Yeah. What would you say to 14-year-old Corissa about the comic career that she is approaching?
Oh my God, you're gonna make so many stuffies, girl.
I would okay, so here's a tricky one. So most people know that I lost $9,000 starting out. So
I didn't know that. Do you want to tell the story?
Sure. So I lost so the first artist I ever hired, back when I said the infamous words, "How hard can this be?" I kind of got sucked into I'm very gullible and very naive, and I like to help people, and I kept falling for this person's problem. Like I started off smart, using friends and using goods and services through PayPal, and I would only pay for 10 pages ahead of time, and I was trying to be really good. But then it kept coming back. Oh, this broke, or I had a family member in the hospital, or this person died, and I'm trying to pay off the hospital. It was like one thing after another, and I kept advancing the pay. And by the time anything was even done, I was like an issue and a half, paid. And then I paid them to pencil, ink, color, and letter. And they only penciled and then left. So I had to, so that was $3,000 that I had paid them. And then I had hired 2 other people to try to fix it. And it cost me about $5,000 total to do, whatever. However, after it was done, I didn't like it. So I threw it away, and I found my new artist, and he redid issue 1 for me. Now, before I found that new artist, I had hired another artist, and it wasn't their fault per se. But I was naive and stupid, and not much has changed. But I paid them $4,000 to do an issue, and they were Brazilian and didn't read the script, and I couldn't afford the lettering yet. So I liked the art as I saw it and didn't connect it to the script. I just thought, oh, that looks really cool. So when I went to lettering 4 months later, nothing really fit what the character said or what they were doing or whatever. So I pretty much have not used that. I sold a couple of digital just for fun, or I used it for, whatever. So that was $9,000 off the bat. So if I could go back, here's the tricky part though. I would not probably, well, if I have all the same knowledge, I guess I could. See, I don't regret the $5,000 losing it, because my artist is phenomenal and he was worth $5,000. So I if that had to happen, then fair enough. That's how I found him, and I wouldn't want to screw with that. However, the second artist, I would like to keep that $4,000, and I probably would not make a spinoff, because my artist is going to redo it anyway. So there really was nothing to do with it. So I would not hire that one. But I probably wouldn't screw, unless I could tell myself, make sure to hire this guy, get to him right away. Jonas DaCosta, you got to find him. So if I could find him and not screw up, my line here, I would do that. But if I needed to lose that $5,000, I would just do not go for the other.
And that, unfortunately, is, many creators have some horror stories like that. It's part of the learning process, right?
Well, if I could go back and start over myself, like at the beginning of comics, the only thing I would really do besides not hire that one was I would never in my life ever ask for a character design again. Never.
Why not?
It was the biggest waste of money I've ever done. The smartest thing I ever did was that's sad, but I would give them a page of my script and tell them, here you go, make the characters look like this and do a page. Like, they literally have to do my character design anyway, because they're doing my character description when they draw. And now not only did I see how they drew them, I saw how they do panels, I saw how they do layouts, and I can see and make sure they can do them in different actions, because first of all, the character designs were way more money. I don't know why they were double the price, but they were all double. I spent probably 20 grand before I even started with comics.
Okay.
So
just killed Tim. You just took 10 years off his life.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Now I see it. I was gonna say, what's she talking about? I always do character designs, but I don't think I've ever spent more than $200.
When I switched to literally when I discovered this, I found my artist, so it worked out. But I would hire for these character designs. They looked decent, and then they could not do the same look in a layout.
Yeah,
right.
You got to see those sequentials. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. See the sequential. Exactly.
It was such a waste of money, and I regret all of the character designs I ever gotten. And I spent thousands on. I am super picky with my characters. It took me a long time to find my artist and be as satisfied as I am with him, which is why he's never allowed to leave. You know, he's going to be chained in the basement doing these for the rest of his life. So his answer, yeah, when his answer is, when I say you better never leave, he goes, as long as I'm alive, I'll be drawing this comic. So I'm like, well, yeah, but you know, and they better be careful when he's driving or whatever, because I told him he had the whole RoboCop thing on his site. Yeah, please don't do anything I say. It is definitely I'm more of a cautionary tale what not to do. That's how the best way to follow that.
Throw a bunch of money around, launch a 90-issue epic series. All these things are the opposite of what you should do, but but it can work somehow, some way.
Just want to take a quick second and focus on this quote because it's such a good one. Regret is hard to hold if you are happy with where you are. Words to live by. It's a good one.
For sure.
So John, how about you? So if you could travel back in time and talk to 14-year-old Jon Westhoff, what would you tell him?
Oh, wait, can I just, for Jessica's, I didn't mind losing the $5,000 because I found my new artist, not the old artist. So she said, why do you regret losing the $5,000 if he was a great artist? But by losing that artist, I got mine. And if I didn't lose that $5,000, I would be still stuck with that artist. And I'd probably be on issue 2. So, so I'm grateful for losing the $5,000 to find mine artist. So,
gotcha.
Sorry, go ahead.
I never really had aspirations to create comics. I wanted to, be a musician, or I don't know, be in a comedy troupe or something like that when I was 14. So I don't know. He would probably be surprised to even hear that I was writing comics, but I'd probably just tell him, be nicer to yourself. You'll figure stuff out. You'll find a way to make creative stuff that makes you feel good about yourself and your the teams that you're working with. So just keep your head down, buddy, and be nicer to yourself.
I kind of like that one, John. Be nicer to yourself. That's something that we all forget. Aaron, how about you? All right, you got the time machine fired up. You come out, there's 14-year-old Aaron. What do you say to him?
So many things. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
He's not me. Oh, he is.
Not much for comics, but stuff about life for sure.
What would you tell him? I'm interested.
I'm trying to. I don't want to get in trouble.
You don't have to blast the ex-wife if that's where this is going. I won't do it about mine.
Exactly where it was going.
No, I smelled it.
Yeah, no. But for real, yeah. When it comes to the comic book stuff itself, like, I don't know, because I still have fun with it. So I'm not. At no point have I been like, burn it all and end all of it with the comic book world. Like I've never gotten there. So,
I think part of the journey is that, and being, humble in yourself and kind of just appreciating the journey. You wouldn't be where you are, like Carissa said, the attitude that she's taken. But I guess I would say maybe start off with a better plan. I spent the first 10 years, jumping around a little bit story to story, and I think I missed some opportunity to work with some people I really wanted to work with and really, make some longer form stories that and instead I had to abandon a couple stories early on because they were just kind of not getting where they need to be. And, so there were some bumps in the road early on, I guess if I'm being fair, I would say something like that. But again, that kind of created where I'm at now. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I was hoping somebody was going to say that because, I would love to go back and erase all the terrible things that happened to me. And there were a few, but I don't want to get into that. But the truth is, if it wouldn't have been for that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I would tell my 14-year-old self, you're not going to believe what's about to happen. Hold on tight and keep going.
Water Wars 2028. 2028, 2280.
It's kind of funny that became again, I don't like to make this too much about me, but at the time, probably nobody remembers, it was Socket was going to be the big one. Had the animation connection. It was going to be a TV series. None of that happened. And here I am making the Water Wars series, which was never even a blip on the radar.
Huh.
So yeah, weird things happen. Weird things happen. So I'll tell you what, let's change gears one more time. You know, we're talking about imposter syndrome for the viewers that have joined us here tonight on the Creative Cranium. And one of the things I want to focus on, we're all pretty intelligent people, I think, in this room, and we've all sort of chosen an unusual craft. We talked a little bit about how money is one of the indicators of what we do, but not necessarily the main one. So my question for Corissa is this. Out of all the things you could have done, why comics?
I'm not a very good writer. So it fit comics way better. I'm an amazing storyteller, and I probably have the intelligence to write better, but I tried to do the whole show don't tell for novelization stuff, and it hurt my head. So just telling the story worked out so perfect. And the way I wrote it, it pretty much, it's like it was meant to be a comic book, because literally when I'm converting to scripts, I literally already described what the room looks like or what I was going on or what I was doing. So it's incredibly easy to convert into scripts. So that would be why comics and not novels.
Because it kind of fits your skill set.
It fits my skill set. And I know this is going to sound kind of maybe stupid. I already wrote it. So to release it as a novel doesn't do anything for me. So when I get to see it drawn out, I can see my characters come to life, and the emotion, you know, that I can see in their face and their eyes, and see this medium played out. I loved comics when I was a kid. It's not something that I ever thought I would be into. You know, I'd have my own. I did not think that was going to happen. But to be able to see my characters just develop into a story, and I mean, every time I get a script, you know, every time I get a page, it's like, that is the coolest thing. That's how I pictured it in my head.
It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. And when I that was it. It's the fact that it fits my skill set, and I wanted to see my characters more than anything. So.
Good answer. Good answer. John, how about you? And I know, actually, we know you're a musician and actually several other cool things. Why comics?
You know, again, I never really had the aspiration to do it. I read comics since, you know, I was 11 years old. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I was like getting out of music, and I was like, you know, I want some other way to be creative. You know, and comics, you know, it just finally clicked with me how cool of a medium they are. And also, like Corissa so honestly stated, I'm not me fail English. That's impossible. I'm not. You know, I knew I wasn't going to, you know, write the great American novel, but comics, you know, of all the mediums, you know, TV and movies and all that, comics, you can just do anything. It's just cool. Like, you know, and again, like she said, it's cool to write something out and have it, but to see it come to life, and again, to collaborate with someone else. And that's a big part of it for me. And that's really why comics, you know, finding people that wanted to create, you know, stories together is just really cool to me. I just enjoy the creative process. And then, you know, if you work, you know, hard enough in this medium, you can get your comic on the shelf right there next to the Amazing Spider-Man and all those books you read as a kid. And that's just really cool to me about comics. And that kind of clicked with me in my late 20s that, like, you know, I could probably do this, and this will be just a fun way to spend those creative hours that I want to spend.
Shots fired. Chad Perkins has entered the chat.
He didn't say what, he didn't add the adjective, or do not what kind of, I do create. It just might be a pile of shit, but
yeah, I love Chad, man. It's great to see him return to the fold. We'll be looking for him on the Creative Cranium here in the next couple of weeks.
Go back to your troll.
How I know I made it is that John makes fun of me. That's how I know I made it.
That's it.
So let's jump over to Aaron. Aaron, right? And of course, I know you do a lot of things too, musician. Why comics?
I honestly would rather write full-length novels for all the stories. However, there is such a thrill in getting to see those characters, getting to see them interacting with each other, So that is fun for me. And so honestly, it's been more so teaching myself to look at this particular story as a novel format or a prose format, and then this particular story as a comic book format, and truly dividing it in my psyche, because I'm going to tell stories no matter which way I have to do them, whether it's novels or comic books, short stories, music, or even like the videography stuff. But I don't know. Comics was just, I was a kid and I read comic books, and then I got older and I thought it would be cool to see characters that I made on a page playing with each other and hitting each other in the face and throwing people off buildings and all that. So that's what I did.
I'll chime in right at the end. Why comics? It was probably about 1989 or 1990. And there was a thing called the Vertigo line. And sometimes people forget Vertigo, but if you remember, it was Sandman, Animal Man was new at that time. There was a bunch of great titles. It was pretty close to when Watchmen came out, Miracle Man. And that's when people started to say, oh, comics can be really good. And that was what kind of flipped my trigger. Nice. So we've been talking about some of the great creations with today's modern creators here on the Creative Cranium, but I'd like to sort of take a look at what you guys are making. So let's start off with Worthy Chaos. This is going to be launching when, Corissa?
Monday.
Great. So can you give us a quick pitch about Worthy Chaos and tell us who will like this project?
Nothing I do is quick, but I will do my best. So it's, Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Supernatural in the Silent Hill town in the world of Resident Evil with Good Omens and Evil Dead tossed in. Mostly people that played Resident Evil or watched any of those shows or love any of that. It's pretty much a survival horror adventure. It focuses around angels and demons, and Anubis is there. And this series, especially book 2, is mostly them trapped in a haunted asylum, and they're trying to get their way out as they fight through giant salamanders, zombies in straitjackets, and ghosts. And for anyone that's new to it, we have issue 1 in a PDF or printed. We have all back issues. We have catch-up tiers. We have mini catch-up tiers. We have our graphic novel, which has 1 through 7 issues in it. And this is issue 8. So there's a tier that you could just get that, or it's in the add-ons. And for anyone that doesn't know, I don't know how that's possible, but I have lots of plushies and merch, and I have been called I know John is shocked. But I have been known for my merch. I've been called Merch Queen, hopefully affectionately. I don't know.
It's affectionate. It's affectionate.
Okay, good. For this campaign, our new plushies are zombies in a straitjacket. You can pre-order and get your any date you want embroidered on the back. I have my birthday. Some people wanted Hannibal Lecter's number on there. If there's somebody crazy in your life and you want to remember, put their birthday on there, that's good too. And then my salamander monster is also new. And
let me give you a big screen, Corissa. I sometimes forget how to do this.
I don't.
Go ahead.
Being big, but okay. So this is I guess you kind of need it for the salamander monster.
I want to show it.
This is salamander monster. I think I have 2 available, and I think already one's going to be sold because she's going to rush on there and get it. And then there's the hellhound that I've been petting this whole time because I have weird anxiety.
That's a cool one.
They're I love the hellhound. And then I have my zombie plushie, and because it sells out every time, I made more of the skeleton birds. This poor thing is from issue 3, but they keep going. So here is we have a lot of other stuff. I think I have it where I just added it that if you spend the first 50 people to spend over $50 pledge gets a wooden necklace on a cord, and then if you spend over 100, you get one of the exclusively painted coins. So there's this. I don't know how to work the damn camera. There we go.
I got you. Hold on. I got G Webb, the man called Zorb, telling us we need a producer. Listen, Zorb, if you want to join me backstage, I know I need a producer. It's hard to do the layouts and I'll answer the comments all at the same time.
Yeah. So if you spend over 50, then you get one of these.
That's pretty cool.
And then if you spend over 100, you get one of these, the gold-plated coins, but Anubis is painted, and
That's
it's
cool.
two-sided. There's not that many of these. I have about 50 of these. So yeah, pledge early. It doesn't indicate anything whatsoever, but this is the most followers I've had in my campaign, and it's more than the biggest backers I've had. So that's encouraging. Of course, my mind just tells me that means it's going to be the lowest backers yet, but it is some joy in it being a high follower account. So that's great. No, I did not. These are handmade by Down Home Textiles, which is I've given their. I should get a finder's fee because John and everyone else has probably gotten something from them. But these are handmade. The only commercially made Anubis I have is this one, but he will be in the March 4th one because I don't release anything. I don't release anything until I have them in hand. And this is just a sample. So they were ordered and I'm waiting for them to come. So it should be March 4th. And the easiest way to find us on Kickstarter is search Worthy Chaos. We are the only thing that pops up. So it's easy to find us. So now there's like 9. There's 9 things. Sorry. But there is only us in Worthy Chaos. So and we're
I sure wish you the best of luck with your launch. And by the way, we'll be seeing Corissa again on either launch day or it's maybe one day before, right?
I think it's the Friday after.
Oh, okay, so we'll be in. So it's not technically the launch, but it's pretty soon.
Yeah,
after.
yeah.
So we'll have some more.
I don't do live launches anymore, even though Lori is incredibly good at them. I get way too much anxiety. The problem with mine is there is like 27 tiers and it takes people like an hour to go through. So there's like no pledges for like the first hour and then all of a sudden like 20 come through. So I don't like being on screen watching the thing move or not move or whatever. I have anxiety. So yeah, just yeah.
I respect that.
Chad knows me all too well. Yeah. Chad might get a plushie. So
yeah, he's hitting me up. He might help me with a little producing. I say that partly with some humor, but the truth is I do need some assistant or somebody to generally help out. This is turning into a thing, our weekly broadcast here. So let's jump over to Aaron. Fall of Night. I didn't know it was going to be called Violent Beginnings, but I got to tell you something. This looks amazing to me. As many of you know in the audience, I have a predilection for Asian history and Asian material. Aaron, tell us a little bit about your latest work and who is going to love this project.
Yeah, so Fall of Night, it's about a Templar knight who runs away from his order after he witnesses some stuff that he just doesn't want to be a part of. So he goes through a crisis of faith, and we catch up with him a few years later. He just kind of drinks his sorrows away. He had run to feudal Japan in a local province, and he tries to keep to himself and accidentally gets into a little bit of a scuffle with a samurai's daughter. She's completely drunk and he's drinking. So, things happen. And so the local daimyo comes in to break it up. And that's the first time we kind of see Anthony having to meet this person who is trying to lead this province with a very ruthless hand. And it's pretty violent. There's a lot of heartache in that book as well. And the entire point of the book is to kind of step through how far are you willing to go. How
many pages we talking, Aaron?
Yeah, so this one's it's 20. I think it's just a 24.
Okay,
right now. And we did a limited color palette on it with the colorist Lois Lackey. She's fantastic. Joe DeSantos, who I did all of Tilt with, is doing the illustrations, and Van Claridge is doing lettering. And for those that don't know Van Claridge, I think you'll know him quite a bit after this book because he's doing some really cool, random, crazy stuff that goes with the theme. But the book looks so freaking cool because of that limited Japanese color palette. And I think people will really vibe with it if you like, stuff set in feudal Japan, but you also want to see what happens to a knight when he's trying to figure out if he needs to pick up and lay down the law again.
Nice.
I love this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool
I'm a fan of this kind of stuff, and I'm actually really looking forward to this one. That's I wish you every success with that, Aaron. And if there's anything I can do to, and same to Corissa and all of you, anything I can do to help out, I will. And I'm sure you probably already know I will. A couple of you I already have scheduled for launches and whatnot. So I know John's just about running out of time. So man, I've got to talk about his book, and I could go on and on about Drumsticks of Doom, but it's probably better to hear it from the horse's mouth. So, John, can you tell us your pitch for Drumsticks of Doom and who will love this series?
Yeah, I appreciate the time to talk about it. If you haven't heard me flap my gums about it the last 2 years, we've been making this book, almost 3 now. We finished 4 issues, and we're finally on to the first trade, where you'll get all the issues plus some bonus material, all the variant covers, all that good stuff. But the short pitch is, what if Black Sabbath, not the Beatles, became the most famous band on Earth, and thus the universe was changed forever, musically and otherwise? But Lana, our main character, just wants to play music, indie music in a heavy metal world. So she's kind of caught in between this battle to keep heavy metal on the top of the charts when she finds a magical pair of drumsticks.
Nice.
So, I've mentioned a couple times about having a background in music. So, it's a big part of what goes into this book is a love for heavy metal in particular, and just kind of wanting to create a story around that. But I didn't think anybody would read this kind of slice of life music story that I had in mind. So I had to throw some werewolves and witches and other stuff in there. So that's how the kind of story came up. But yes, we're launching on the 16th of January. This is our first trade paperback as Part-Time Comics. So this is a huge step for us. Any support, follows, retweets, all that kind of stuff really, really, really helps because this is a huge step for the company at this point.
Well, congratulations, John, and I wish you every success with this project. I hope I've made it clear to my followers. I'm a fan of this series, and it was one of the rewards for backing the Water Wars campaign. It's a fun read, and you don't have to be a musician to get the jokes. And even if you're just a passing fan of music, you'd be like, oh, this is pretty cool. There's tons of cool references, and it's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I hope that's obviously the target audience. It's a pretty easy sell at conventions. They see the kind of heavy metal style logo, and
yeah,
I kind of give them the pitch. So it's definitely
you should mention the homage covers.
Yeah, there's definitely there's some great homage covers. You see one there, which you got to be a pretty ingrained metal fan to catch that one. But that's a Manowar cover there, which a lot of the story is based, on Manowar's over the top lyrics, and if those were kind of in the real world. But we've got all those heavy metal covers, including we have a Megadeth Peace Sells one, we have a Dio Holy Diver cover, and we have another Manowar one here, all in real metal covers, hard metal. I'm trying to get on Carissa's level with merch, so we have a 3D printed drumstick holder with the horns. We have new double-sided keychains. We have patches, we have stickers. So we have a whole bunch of cool stuff, particularly if you've already bought the issues. Again, the metal issue 4 cover will be in for the first time. We have our variants. We have an exclusive misprint cover that's going in there that we're kind of throwing in for fun in the add-ons for the hardcore fans. So we've got stuff for people who kind of already backed the books before. So please don't pass up on it just because you've already.
Strongest form of flattery. I'm gonna just go with that.
It's good stuff, John. Good stuff, man. I wish you every success with that project, and you can, for all 4 of you, I'll be super happy to help promote any of these great projects. For the viewers listening at home, I hope you'll take a look at some of the projects that we took a look at tonight. Definitely some of the greatest products right now in the creative community. So in closing, I'd like to say thanks to the viewers for tuning in to our episode about imposter syndrome. I really feel like you guys did a great job answering these questions, and I hope it's helpful for some of the people. Before we say goodbye, let's just go around the room one time and tell us who you are again and where we can find your work. Corissa, let's take you first.
I am Corissa Grant. I am on Twitter at worthy_chaos. I have a Facebook group, Worthy Chaos, and I'm one of those people that would have got kidnapped as a kid. I talk to anybody, so you can add me, Corissa Grant, on Facebook. And I'm always on Kickstarter, so you can just find me at theworthychaos.com or search Worthy Chaos, and it pops up, and you just have to go to the newest one and whichever one's in pre-launch and pick your poison. So there you go.
Excellent. Jon, how about you? Who are you and where can we find you?
Yeah, Jon.
I am Jon Westhoff, the publisher, writer, and letterer for Part-Time Comics. You can find us here at Linktree. Really, we're Part-Time Comics with an X on all social media. You can find us there, but go to the Linktree. That's the best place to follow us. Get on our mailing list on YouTube. We're trying to do the same thing as Tim and get, more live recorded content out there as well. But yeah, we're always not on as much as Corissa, but we got 5 Kickstarters planned for next year, so you'll have plenty of opportunities to catch us out there.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on, Jon. Let's jump over to Aaron. Aaron, tell us, who are you?
Yep.
Where can we find you?
Yep. So again, I'm Aaron. I write, I edit, I do all that stuff. Look up Catalyst Comic Studio. We're what comes up. And for other stuff, I host the Inner Sanctum, which is a every other week live stream with other creators. Not completely dissimilar to this, but
That's a good show too, by the way.
Yeah, man, we're trying to have some fun. It's just a way for me to let other people talk about their projects and show some support for the indie community. And that's every second and fourth Monday of the month, except for this time because we're going to do a live launch. But yeah, so check that out. And Aaron writes stuff on TikTok. I'm trying to spend more time over there. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Pretty much it. Well, thanks again, guys, for coming on the show. Thanks, viewers, for watching it. This has been an episode of The Creative Cranium. We will see you guys next week. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Bye.